Okay, we are going to wrap up this PowerPoint today. End the chapter. So again, your test is what day?
Monday. The 15th.
Monday the 15th. Okay. I'm gonna lower the music. Okay, so GDP, gross domestic product. Simple way to understand this is that the more stuff you make and sell, the wealthier your country is. Right? That's like a very simple way to understand the economy. How much stuff are you producing? Right? Think about it this way. If you have an essay assignment and you produce a blank piece of paper, what mark are you going to get?
Zero.
Zero. Okay, so if you were a country and you produce nothing worth selling, nothing worth buying, how much money are you going to make? Zero, right? So that's GDP. So when a country has a lot of stuff, and take a look at some of the images. So, you know, they have cars, and say you manufacture things, a camera, a water bottle, something that someone might want to buy, right? Maybe you, just a bunch of stuff here. Maybe you sell ideas, right? So out of you kids know what Silicon Valley is, right? It's in California where they do all the tech stuff and all this other creepy stuff that you probably don't want to know about, but should be aware of. So, you know, if you have a really good idea, you can sell that as well, right? Somebody pays you for your services. Let's say raw materials. So in my discussions with the grade 9s yesterday, your class and the other class, in Africa, they get a lot of raw material resources. So they dig up metals and stuff that needs to be melted down and reshaped into different products. Right? You can sell all that. Maybe your country produces work, labor, right? So where are a lot of clothes made? In Asia, right? In parts of the world that are not fully industrialized, right? So there's a variety of ways that you can produce value. Another thing, tourism as well, right? Anyone been to a very touristy spot? Like I know Hawaii's like that, Mexico as well, right? A couple other places that I can't think of. Parts of Europe as well, Brazil to an extent, although maybe a little less so given the violence that occurs there. There's a lot of ways to make money, but the foundation of that is that you have something that is worth buying. So I don't know, did you boys trade lunches today? No. Julius, how much would you sell your lunch for? $6. $5. Okay, who would pay $5 for his lunch? Okay, so you got a couple buyers, right? Okay, but there's 5 of you maybe. Who would pay $6? You'd pay $6. You'd fight for it, but fighting's not worth any money to him. You know, he doesn't want you to prove how much you love him by fighting.
Well, we could all fight, and then the person who wins just pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So it'll cost you $5 and maybe a black eye or a broken nose or a missing tooth. Okay. And then, you know, there's this idea that you take how much stuff is produced and how much value it has. So let's say instead of selling his lunch, Julius sells, I don't know, counterfeit iPhones, okay?
Whoa.
And he sells them for $200 and they work and look just like an iPhone, but it's not a real iPhone. So he sells them for $200. Okay. So Julius is a very wealthy guy. What's that?
Why would it be less than the iPhone if it looks and is like that?
Well, why would you pay the same amount for a fake iPhone as a real iPhone?
Is it a fake iPhone if it does everything like an iPhone and looks like an
Sure.
Fake iPhone.
Sure, let's say on the back instead of an apple, it's a pear.
iPhone?
Okay, that's the only defect. It's not nearly as good quality, it's a little bit slower, and there's a pear on the back instead of an apple. Or better yet, I don't know, there's like a watermelon. Okay. Whatever fruit, you know, how much are you gonna pay for it? Okay, so think about it this way. So he's selling his lunches, maybe someone else is selling counterfeit phones, someone else is selling t-shirts, you know, she's singing songs for people and they're paying for that. Anybody here good at drawing? No, are you joking? Come on, anybody here good at drawing?
I can make a pretty good thing.
Okay, so you're selling caricatures. You kids know what a caricature is? Right, a caricature is when you like look at a person, you make a funny little drawing of them, right? You exaggerate all their features, right? Make it, and you know, hopefully they laugh and not hit you, right? So now everybody's selling something in this classroom. So we have a real good GDP, right? Our economy in this classroom is very high. Unfortunately for you, the tax man, which is me, takes about 50% of your profits, okay? And then you distribute all of that value together amongst the population. That's how you get your per capita, right? So this is just an average number. So on average, based on how much money you make, that's probably for you. Based on how... Hello. Okay, sounds good. 0 for 2. 0 for 2. Not feeling good.
She's actually feeling great.
She looks like she's feeling great. Just skipping school. She's in grade 12. Apparently the grade 12s skipped today, but like 80% of them called in sick. I don't know, they have this thing called skip day, but it's not skip day if you just tell your mom and dad to call in and get you excused. You gotta take the L and take the absent. She's playing the same game apparently, right? She just tuned in on it a bit late. Okay. Anyways, this number is an average, right? Like the amount of value the economy produces is about $59,000, $59,500 per person. In Canada, $45,000. It doesn't mean that every single person produces that much value, right? Like some people produce a lot less. You know, these things are never equal, right? So think about it. Let's say you and your friend hand in an essay, right, rather than a blank piece of paper. Are you and your friend gonna get the same mark? No. Well, who's gonna get the higher mark though? That's the real question.
Whoever did the better exam, or essay, I mean.
Wrong. It's whoever the teacher likes more. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. Okay. Whoever did better work, right? Whoever answered the question properly. Right? So the average of the class might be 60%, but maybe you got an 80. You're bringing it up, but there's a bunch of people bringing it down, right? I don't know why we just went from talking about GDP to boycotting. Anyways, this is other economic related decisions. So let's say, okay, how many of you recall that story from Starbucks where they shot that black guy for sitting there?
Whoa. I don't remember that.
Or sorry, no, they called the police, sorry, no, they didn't shoot, sorry. They called the police on this guy for just sitting there waiting for his friends.
Oh.
Yeah, no black people were shot by Starbucks employees, okay? But
Was he doing wrong?
I wonder where.
that's what that's I don't know why this person chose to call the police on him, but this guy, I believe he was waiting for his friends to show up before he ordered. Whoever was working in the Starbucks didn't like that, right? For whatever reason, right? God forbid. Anyways, they called the police on this guy, and I don't recall what the police did to him. Let's hope he didn't get shot. You can Google this story. Anyways, there was a whole backlash against Starbucks. People are like, hey, what the hell, Starbucks? Like, what do you mean people can't just sit and wait for their friends? You know, people are allowed to do that, right? You're allowed to be in a business and say, hey, my friend's on their way. I'll just get something when they show up. Now, I don't know how long the guy was there. And sure, if he was there for like 2 days, maybe that's enough reason to call the police and be like, okay, this person slept here last night. And you know, they haven't bought anything in 2 days. Can you get them out of our business? And then like maybe this person's like kind of sketchy, right? Did I tell you my my McDonald's story from Montreal? Like this past Saturday, yeah, the guy was like clearly taking drugs, like it was in his hand.
Oh.
You know, okay, so I walk into the McDonald's. There's like 2 sets of doors. As I'm passing by this guy, I open the door. I pass by. Like there's like some blue rock substance in his hand. He's got a lighter. Something.
Are those pop rocks?
Anyways, you know, I step past the guy because I'm hungry. Not in the mood to deal with this. I order my food. 5 minutes later, like a couple minutes later, I'm like, hey, I wonder what happened to that guy. I turned over. He's literally standing there like this, like just fully passed out, but just
Standing?
yeah. Like I think he was asleep, but he was just there like this. Right?
It was new powder.
Well, it was like a crystally rock substance, right?
Oh, Walter White's method.
Sure, right? Maybe, right? So, you know, there are discrepancies to these situations. Anyways, this guy at Starbucks, he's just sitting there waiting for his friend. They call the police on him. I don't know what happens to him and the police. People got really upset at Starbucks. Like, hey, what the hell? You can't do that. You can't just call the police on somebody for waiting, right? And so there was a backlash, and some people boycotted Starbucks for that. A boycott is when you say, hey, I don't like your business practices or your ethical practices. Like, what's that business that's closed on Sundays because they're like super religious? Chick-fil-A, right? Chick-fil-A is closed on Sundays because they're religious, right? And they're also very anti-gay, if I understand, right? They're very open about that. And so people say, well, we refuse to buy Chick-fil-A's food, right? That's a boycott, right? You disagree with some of their practices, how they conduct themselves, and so you refuse to do business with them. You can boycott your friend, like maybe your friend treats you poorly, so you're like, okay, like I'm just not gonna hang out with this person. I'm not gonna go talk to this person, right? That's a boycott as well. Okay, very roundabout way to talk to you about boycotts.
Yes,
Animal rights groups, they do some of the silliest PR schemes ever. They're very strange, like PETA's funny, man. They'll get some like gorgeous model to pose nude with fur on her or something and be like, oh, are you okay with killing animals? Like, I don't think anybody's really looking at that for the killing animals part, but they know what sells, man. You know, they'll also have people like naked on the floor, paint with red paint on them as like the blood of the animals, right? The animal rights activists do some very strange stuff. And it's funny because they might tell you like, hey, don't eat cows because you're killing an animal, right? Be vegan. But cows are delicious, right? But the thing about being vegan and eating vegetarian only is like, what do you think lives in a field? Rabbits. What else? Shrews, birds, insects, lots of those, right? We just spray those down. We commit full-on insect genocide all the time, right? Okay, what else lives in a small field?
Grass.
Squirrels, snakes. We don't like snakes, it's okay if they die. Foxes, right? Well, maybe not so much, right? But there's a whole ecosystem that might live in a farmer's field. And so, like, you ever seen those alien movies where the aliens come down and they just start lasering everything and like people are running? You ever seen these movies? Come on, right? That's essentially what we do when we take those big combine tractors over a field, right? So those rabbits are running for their lives, the birds are trying to fly, all those insects just perish immediately, right? They get put into your tofu or whatever right? So, you know, you gotta consider like, okay, if you have a cow, if you have steak for dinner, which is a great idea. One animal died, and how many people get fed by it? At least a couple. I mean, maybe a couple big people, right? Like, there's a lot of meat on a cow. Okay. Yeah, a couple Mr. Kawajas, yeah, sure. And so it is interesting. This comes back to some of the ideas I mentioned before. Like, it's good to consider the full impact of these decisions, right? So you might say, hey, another thing with animal products, right? Because I'm just giving you the opposite view of this, right? Like the textbook, the notes is going to give you one side. Here's another side. Interestingly enough, most people don't really care about animals unless there's some sort of value. Like you care about some animals. Like you care about maybe your dog or your cat. Some of you like cold-blooded animals. It's kind of strange. Like lizards, snakes. Some of you like spiders, which is super strange, or like scorpions, right? It's like making value judgments here, kids.
Unless you actually get a snake.
Yeah.
Right? Has anyone seen one of those advertisements where it shows like a lineup of animals and like which one's family, and there's a line after like the dog, the cat, and the the rabbit, and then there you have the farm animals, right? You've seen those, right? You know, so obviously we care about some animals, but in terms of like utilizing fur, so a lot of these animals that get hunted for their fur to make fur coats, fur pelts. Like I have a sheepskin winter coat, which is great. I love it. Right? No sheeps had to die for that one. Pretty sure, right? Because you can just shave a sheep. But let's say you had some sort of
Yeah,
fox
sheepskin.
or coyote pelt or whatever, and you're utilizing this fur coat because it keeps you warm and it's a natural, you know, it's a natural fiber, let's say, right? Because it grows on an animal, not in an oil field with polyester. There's a lot of money that goes into the conservation of that animal and ensuring that the people who hunt it do it legally and pay to do that. And that money goes into not just conserving the animal, but it goes into conserving the entire area, right? So people like these animal protesters, I don't know if PETA is shown in any of these images. You kids know who PETA is? PETA? Have you heard of this group? They're like a very strong animal rights activist group. They're very anti-hunter. They don't like people who hunt, like, oh, it's so barbaric, like why are you shooting animals? It's like why do you care, right? Yeah, maybe, it could be very enjoyable. But the money that the hunter pays for their licensing goes into actually conserving the wildlife reserve and the animal itself and taking care of those animals. So hunters actually do a lot for wildlife, despite the fact they shoot them once or twice a year, right? You're smiling, you're laughing, but it's true, right? Look into it, kids. What's up? You've
I'm
been
not-
patiently waiting.
I'm not I wasn't, oh,
No, but I was looking at him and saying,
I wasn't laughing at, I was laughing, but I wasn't laughing at the, I was laughing at Peter because like, what?
man, I said a lot of things. I don't know what you're saying. What? Like the whole thing?
We don't have this on our notes.
You don't? Okay, excellent. I'm gonna talk to you about this thing called planned obsolescence. How many of you are aware that Apple was sued a couple years ago because people were like, hey, you're deliberately installing software onto your phones that slows them down and makes them more difficult to use, right? Some of you guys are aware of that, right? That is a term called planned obsolescence. Look, you're looking at this bowl like you're archaeologists finding something new. This is how they should teach fractions and food. To be quite honest, like,
Nothing. That's the last piece.
Yeah.
That's the last piece.
teach you fractions on paper. It's a bad idea. Teach you with food, right? Take 7 Smarties. Okay, you get 5 out of 7. What percentage is that? You don't know, right? Maybe 1 Smartie gets split in half, so you get 4.5 out of 7. What's that as a percentage? Anyways, planned obsolescence. So that's essentially like, hey, we make a product, but we make it in a manner that we know that like 5, 10 years from now, 2 to 3 years from now, it'll be useless. It's obsolete, right? So think about it this way, like how many of you, when you have to write an essay, like dig deep into your backpack, really struggle to lift out and drop onto your desk a big typewriter? How many of you even know what a typewriter is? Right, there's all ting, right? You know, where you make a mistake, you're like, oh man, I gotta rip the whole page up, right? I actually don't know how you fix a mistake on a typewriter, right? It's obsolete technology, right? You don't think so, right? You do what Shakespeare said, and you say, hey, you know what, that's a new word, I just made it up. It means this, right? So that technology is obsolete, it's a little old, right? You know, for those of you kids who vape, right? It's not like you go out there and start a little fire and then put your little substance onto that. You have a vape pen, right? And it has like technology in it that has a little fire inside of it, right? So I'm not promoting nothing. What are you saying about me? Dude, I'm just acknowledging what's out there, okay? So starting a fire with your hands is obsolete until you're in a survival situation because a grizzly bear attacked your camp and killed your family and you're stuck in the forest, right? You never know, man. It could happen to you. That's
So
all.
are you speaking from experience?
I know it's not in the notes. There was a whole uprising on this side of the room like 5 minutes ago that you completely missed because you were so busy doing your fractions
And vape.
and vaping, right? It's okay, at least you're doing some math, right?
He's quitting. What do you mean I'm quitting? I never did.
Okay. So, how many of you have like bright LED light bulbs in your house? Okay. How many of you actually like them? I have them as well. No, I don't like them.
What?
I don't like them. People are like, oh, they're more efficient. They'll save the planet. To hell with the planet. And those lights are bright.
Light.
I have one right over my bed, so like when I'm laying in bed and the light's still on, it's so bright. It's just like you can't fall
Then
asleep.
get a lamp.
Turn the light
I
off.
have a lamp now. Turn the light off. I'm supposed to sit there in the dark like a bat.
Yeah.
Why would you lay
Fire
in
at the
your bed?
room.
Or just turn
Yeah,
off
why
the
would you
light.
lay in your bed if the light's on?
Yeah, just turn off the light. Basically.
You have a bed in your room for sleep. That's all you need it for.
You know damn well you do not own
Are you guys like a dog?
What is that supposed to be?
Oh, no, when it's like 9 p.m., 10 o'clock, maybe I'm reading a book, maybe I'm chilling, right?
Get like a lamp.
Yeah, I have a lamp now, right? I
Then
have
use
like a
the
little-
lamp.
a little reading lamp.
Are you scared of the dark? Are you scared of the dark?
Terrified. So scared. I can't see anything in the dark.
Yes.
There's monsters in the dark.
Okay, with a bed.
Okay. So people think, hey, those old light bulbs are obsolete. We don't need them. They're inefficient. How dare you use them? They're bad for the environment. And like, I don't know, maybe they were. But the bright white LED lights, like they're really bad for your circadian rhythm. You kids know what a circadian rhythm is? A circadian rhythm is your internal clock. It measures the sunrise and sunset. It is, and temperature as well, right? So, because your body doesn't just wake up due to sunlight, it also wakes up because the like things get warmer, so your body gets warmer and you wake up. But those bright lights on in your phone, in your house when they're on, and I've read, I'll add that later. They really mess with your ability to recognize when it's time to go to sleep. But these softer lights don't do it as bad, right? They're not as dramatic.
So if I always have my lights on, I don't stay up.
Well, if you always have, like, you'll eventually fall asleep just out of sheer exhaustion. But if you always have bright white lights overhead, like the blue LED lights, the blue emitting light, it messes with your brain's ability to detect that, hey, it's time to go to sleep, right? So a lot of you, sometimes you might not even be using your phone at night, but you find it hard to go to sleep. That's because your brain's circadian rhythm is saying, well, we normally have bright light shown to us at this time. It's not time to go to sleep. You're just not looking at a device. An easy way to reset that that's scientifically proven is like when you wake up right away, try to have some natural light go into your eyes. Don't stare at the sun. I'm not telling you to stare at the sun. I'm just saying, go outside, touch grass, watch the sunrise.
I woke up today, I was like so awake.
Is there a difference between like phone blue light and having a blue light on you? Like LEDs, like
I don't think so because they all emit that same blue light. It's like it's daylight light. What's that? So you have to understand there's like a different layer to this, right? So there's what you see is bright, but there's like blue light and then there's red light. So the red light is more so evening time, softer, it's time to go to bed, right? How many of you use that? There's a function on your phones now, night shift, right?
I do that.
Which is gonna help a bit, right? But if you turn that night shift off, let's say your room's dark and it's like 2 a.m. because you're up at 2 a.m. scrolling on TikTok because that's what you do. And you shift the night shift off. The way you look to him, look, I'm speaking to you, you do that.
No.
He does it as well, I bet.
No.
Okay? If you shift the night shift off, it's very bright and immediately you'll notice you're more alert. At least I do, right? But yeah, so I would say those lights emit a similar spectrum of light, which is blue, which is designed to keep you awake and alert. So, for example, if we were all, like some of you are, like he's knocked out, right? But some of you are sleepy. She's well on her way to falling asleep, right? But if we were to go outside right now and you get that blue light in you due to the sunlight, that's gonna make you feel more alert. That's actually a good tip for if you feel tired in the middle of the day, go outside, right? Like see some sunlight. Again, don't stare into the sun and like Don't do something stupid like go outside at -40 and say, oh, Mr. Quad just told me to go out there, right? And then try to sue me, right? Because it's in the video. Okay, don't do that. But taking a 10-minute break outside, like at lunch, kids, it's gonna make you feel alert. It's gonna make you feel less depressed. Like you look depressed. You look so sad because your friend's gone. Okay. Another thing that I'll add, we'll wrap this up. This has nothing to do with this, but so with the lamps, does anyone know a guy named Andrew Huberman by any chance? Okay. He's got a really good podcast. He does a lot of scientific stuff, but one of the studies that's come out that he mentioned on his podcast is that if you were to take these lamps and actually have them physically lower on the ground in your house, it tricks your brain into thinking that the sun's setting. It's kind of funny, right? And so what he was saying is that when you have lights overhead, like your biological lizard brain thinks that like, oh, it's daytime, right? But if you have softer lights and they're lower to the ground, like below your gaze, your body and brain starts to think, oh, like it's nighttime.
That's why tall people are always like
Tall people always what?
chill.
That's funny.
I'm short.
I'm gonna kill you.
That's why I got so much energy.
And I'm just confirm that.
I only got overhead lights.
You're getting
That's funny. But it's quite fascinating how you can just hijack your brain chemistry with simple things. Okay, kids, that's it from me. How do we feel about